Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's always a pleasure and a joy to have the opportunity to share a little teaching with you. Today, I wanted to talk to you about it takes two to tango. You see, in this week Parsha, we read about Korach. He was an individual who tried to organize a rebellion against Moses. So he brought all these arguments and he tried to argue with Moses to make a point that his arguments were right and Moses were wrong, and for that reason he's supposed to be the new leader, etc., etc., etc. And of course it didn't go anywhere. If you read the Parsha, you will realize that Korach failed in this mission. But this is not my point today. The name of Korach appears again in the Mishnah, in Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, Mishnah number 17. It reads there, any dispute for the sake of heaven will endure, and any dispute that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. Now, an example of a dispute for the sake of heaven is the dispute between Hillel and Shammai, and an example of a dispute that is not for the sake of heaven is the one of Korach and his followers. And this is the interesting thing that the rabbis notice about this Mishnah. What is the name of Moses? Wasn't the discussion, the argument, the dispute between Korach and Moses? Shouldn't it say that an example of a dispute that is not for the sake of heaven is between Korach and Moses? But it just says between. It just doesn't say between at all. It says an example is Korach and his followers. And this is the thing, because Moses saw it coming. When Korach presented all these arguments and he wanted to argue with Moses, Moses realized right away that all what Korach wanted was to bring strife into the life of the Jewish people. He didn't want to argue for something positive. He didn't want to argue like Hillel and Shammai to try to improve Jewish life, to try to present new interpretations of the Torah. All what Korach wanted was to introduce strife and eventually to get the power and the leadership for himself out of selfishness, out of greed. And Moses was not willing to enter into that kind of conversation, into that kind of dispute. And that's why the name of Moses is not mentioned in the Mishnah, because it was no argument, because it takes two to tango. So if you know someone who is trying to argue for the sake of arguing, and you realize that those kind of arguments, all what they are going to bring is strife and pain, to like Moses. Leave it to God and avoid those negative disputes. Because, as the Mishnah says, only disputes for the sake of heaven will endure, and only those disputes, only those conversations are the ones worth to be pursued. Shabbat Shalom, and hope to see you soon.